Well, Dennis, welcome to the ODAT Chad podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and talk to you. We're like best buds now.
I know, right? There are some people that you just click with instantly, and you were definitely one of those people. I had such a good time on your podcast, the Funky Brain podcast. That was so much fun.
Yeah, I loved having it. We have a similar mindset. I think, some people you click with and some people you don't. And some people you click with on a deeper level and some people it's surface level. And I think that
Yeah.
we just had the deeper level thing going on. I'm super excited.
Yeah, for sure. And I am so excited that, man, and this is just a testament to the power of podcasting, right? It's like you just never know what's going to happen when you start different projects and things like that. You just never know what's going to happen. And I'm sure you've had this experience too when you do your podcast. You just meet some amazing people and develop and find new friends that are on the same mission as you are. So, yeah, I feel super lucky that I don't even remember how we connected, but yay, us.
I think I reached out to you. I was looking at other sobriety, recovery, addiction stuff, podcast people, and I think you popped up. And so I reached out to you to see if
That's
you wanted to be
awesome.
on my podcast. And I'm very excited that I did.
Yeah, and then I was like, "Oh, you must come onto my podcast. my people need to my people need to know your people."
Yes, and now here we are. It's so cool. I mean, I interview all kinds of people, and I've interviewed like celebrities and athletes and stuff, and they're not all connected to the addiction recovery space and sobriety space. But there's ways you could steer the conversation into whatever industry they're in, and you can start talking about stuff like that. And like in the world of athletes, they start talking about, oh yeah, and these guys were snorting cocaine while they're on the field, and these guys are drinking all night every night, and so everybody's affected by it somehow. But I
Mhm.
just love how like you and I have a similar background, similar mindset about sobriety and recovery and staying sane and sober and all that stuff. So it's just a cool thing that we were able to hook up.
Definitely, yeah. Staying sane and sober, and that's a really important topic, especially with all the COVID and all the BLM and just everything that's happening. I know you're going through some personal challenges, and we'll touch on that as well. But maybe we can just start with your story, like the traditional experience, strength, and hope. I'm always so curious about people's family of origin and how they grew up, because that kind of sets the stage for everything else. So I'll just turn it over to you and you can tell your story however you want to.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I'll keep it. I'll give you the short version so we can talk about other fun stuff. But
Sure.
I don't want the drunkalog. I don't want to be like the whole drunkalog.
Yeah. Oh, please. Yeah, that can be painful sometimes. People are so fascinated with their own pain, but I don't think it translates all the time.
I know, yeah, you're right. Absolutely not. Well, so yeah, I grew up and when I was young, and my parents got divorced when I was young. I never really thought much about that until very much more recently. I think it affected me more than I thought. But anyway, but that aside, I mean, I was like good childhood. No abuse, no. I never needed for anything. I always had everything I wanted, and I started skiing when I was at a young age, and then I went off right after high school, which was in 1990. I went up to Vermont and I started skiing at a high level, skiing, every day, 100 days a year, and living that lifestyle. So the skiing, partying, I became a chef, and it was just like the ski, chef, party lifestyle. And along with that came the drugs, the alcohol, and the everything that goes along with the drugs and the alcohol. So it didn't start. It's the same story as everybody else. One thing that's unique to me, and I didn't realize this till later either, was my beautiful hair.
Hmm.
Right?
You're bald.
My hair started getting thin when
Currently bald.
my
You're
hair
pointing to
started
your head. We're on a podcast.
my beautiful hair. Yeah. So I started losing my hair when I was like 17 years old. It started getting thin.
17?
17, 18. It was around that point.
Young.
And it just crushed me. And I knew it was coming too. And so what I did was I started wearing hats right when I was 18 at high school, and right after high school. And pretty much I hid from the world. I didn't want everybody to know I was going bald, which everybody knows anyway. But I wore a hat everywhere I went, and I organized my life around it. Like I
Mm.
became a chef because I could wear a hat in the kitchen,
Oh, yeah.
and I became a skier because I'm an active guy, and I became a skier so I can uh, wear a hat. And so everything that I did, I arranged my life so I could wear a hat, and I did that for 13 years, and until I was 31 years old. So at the end, I left Vermont. I moved out to Colorado here, and I've been here about 20 years. And you know, the first few years here, I've been sober since April of 2003. And my first few years here, I left the mountains and I lived in suburbia, and uh, just went crazy. I stopped skiing, so I stopped exercising, and I just became a drunken, lazy bum. And I got in a really bad car accident where I almost died. I was doing 75 miles an hour and rolled 3 times coming down from the mountains here in Colorado from Breckenridge one night in November 15th, 2002. Rolled my truck, blood coming out of my head, and I quit drinking for like 4 days after that. You know, so
You were drunk when you got in that accident?
oh yeah, I drank like a gallon of whiskey that day. I was snorting cocaine, smoking cigarettes. I was the man you see here today is not who I once was. So anyway, I'm just trying to I'll wrap it up fairly quickly. I went to rehab in 2003. For about 6 months after that accident, I just couldn't stop drinking anymore. Couldn't stop doing drugs, and I was in rehab for 30 days, and I haven't had a drink since. And you know, something that you said early on uh, was important. It's about sober and sane, that emotional sobriety. That's what it's about. It's not get sober and life straightens out and you make a bunch of money and relationships are great and your health straightens out, everything's perfect. It's about the reason you get sober is it's about growing up. It's about looking the world in the eye, being honest, being accountable to yourself and to others, and just being the best person you can be. And that's painful for a lot of people, which is why most people fail at sobriety because you know that all these cliches we hear all the time. It's like you only have to change that one thing, and that's everything. And
Hmm.
changing everything is overwhelming, and that's where one day at a time comes in, or 1 hour at a time, or whatever you want to say. And then all of a sudden, you know, you just do the next right thing. You put one foot in front of the other, and all of a sudden, you have a few days and a few months and a few years, and then all of a sudden, you look and your life has changed. And but it's hard because um, what happens is it's that emotional sobriety. So people are like, all right, I'm going to stop drinking. So they stop drinking, and 2 days later, life kicks you in the balls because that's what life does. And so you have no healthy coping skills. And so if you're not growing and learning healthy coping skills and replacing that harmful behavior with healthy behavior, 2 days later, life kicks you in the balls. You're like, well, screw this, I'm going to go drink. And then that's why most people fail in sobriety. So you need to enlarge your life, your spiritual life, your the body, mind, and spirit. You need to be working on that. And so in the last 30 years, I've been through it all. I've made $1 million and I've lost it, and I've had incredible relationships, and I've had heartache, which I'm dealing with now, and I've had health problems, and I've had perfect health, and I haven't had to drink through any of it. And I'm a pretty happy guy, and I have an incredible life, and I wouldn't change it for anything.
That's amazing. Do you have a family history of alcoholism, or is it
Uh,
just you?
not not like me. There were growing up, there was some drinking in the family. It was nothing like I did. There was, I guess, functional, getting together. Definitely some heavy drinkers, but nothing like me. I was the
Okay.
uh, I was the big heavy horse there, the heavy hitter.
The heavy hitter. You were the special one.
I am special.
You are special. Um, and what was the event that led you to rehab? Was it the accident in November in 2002 that you were like, oh my God, something's really amiss here?
So, I was in over 20 drunken car accidents. And I lived in
20?
20, yeah. And I lived in a rural area for a long time for that whole ski time. And the rules are different up in ski mountains, ski towns, beach towns. Like the rules, there's things you can get away with when you live in those types of when you're living in that resort lifestyle. The rules are different. There's not really rules. And you can kind of get away with stuff. I would roll my truck over and run And then I would go get some friends and we would roll it back over and I would drive it home and wake up with like blood on my head and like, what happened? I drove into a house once when I was like 20 or 21 years old. And so that was a history I had, and it went on for years. And at the end, I lost my job. I was working for a big food company here in Denver, and I was really proud of that job. And I ended up losing it from results from that accident. Down the road, I had to sign an agreement saying I wouldn't drink anymore, and I'm like, sure, I'll sign whatever you want. But I couldn't not drink. And on November, a couple right before I got sober, I lost my job because they found out I was drinking. And then on April 8th, 2003, my girlfriend at the time, who was awesome, and I don't know why she was with me because I was really gross and stupid. But she came over that morning and she came into my apartment and she looked at me and I passed out with all my clothes on. I peed my pants and I was just laying there. I was eating mushrooms by myself and snorting cocaine by myself and just like trying to kill myself with drugs and alcohol subconsciously, And she came in, she's like, well, this isn't going to work. And I was like, I just started crying. I was like, I know, I can't stop. I don't know what to do. So she got online and she found that rehab place where I ended up going here in Colorado. And that's that story.
Oh, that's amazing. So when did you think it was a problem?
Well, I knew, it's funny, perspective, right? You could say the same thing two different ways. Back when I was drinking, I would buy a bunch of shots for people I didn't know at the bar with all the money I didn't have and be like, hold it up and be like, hey, cheers everybody, here's to being an alcoholic, and then years later, it's like, all right, I am an alcoholic and I need to stop. So, you could say the same thing in different ways. And it's like, I knew since I was 17 years old, people are like,
Wow.
you want to have a beer? Well, I never had anything. I had a lot of everything. And
A lot. That's the only
yeah, yeah. And I don't want to drink like a normal person. I want to drink like a pig and not have any consequences.
Yeah.
And that's what I want. I don't understand why people sip on a glass of wine, and it doesn't make sense to me. I want to drink 4 bottles of wine and get an 8-ball and not have any consequences. And I can't do
Sounds
that.
amazing.
Yeah, but wouldn't that be awesome?
You just want to do an 8-ball like a normal person?
Yeah, I don't like cocaine. I just like the way it smells.
That's so funny. Yeah, that's okay. So it's so funny because we joke around about things like alcoholism. I remember having a friend that would say the same thing. That'd be like he knew he was an alcoholic, but he just didn't. It wasn't a problem for him though, right? Like he just like all the things that were like the consequences that he was getting. It just wasn't a problem. You know what I mean? And so, but then for me, I was like, this is a problem. I can't stop. I really want to stop. Like I wanted to be better. I just wanted to be someone different, to be perfectly honest. I just couldn't. I just couldn't. And I tried reading all the books and stuff and all the Tony Robbins workshops and, all the, I lived in the self-help section of Barnes and Noble and I was trying to think my way into right living. Um, but had always, so when they showed up to the program and they were like, oh, you only have to change one thing and that's everything. I was like, sweet. Just tell me what to do. When you first got, so you went to you went to rehab. What was that rehab experience like? Was it just like light bulbs everywhere? Was it enlightening for you?
Yeah, there was periods of that. I think the big thing with rehab, at least that in my experience, is that it was a safe place to be, to start.
Mm.
Like they kind of blow you through the steps there, but it's not like it's not a thorough growing up class. It's like, here's an intro. And then when we're done, you have to go out and learn how to live and apply these there. But, if for people that are really struggling, that just need that safe place and don't know where to start and don't know what's out there and they're scared to death and they just can't be by themselves and not drink or snort cocaine or do whatever, then I think it's great. I mean, if you have the resources, at that point, I was tapped, right? I didn't have the money. I tapped out my family. They helped me for years, and that was done too. And I even asked, I was like, look, I'm gonna go to rehab. Can you help me? And they said no. And I was
Wow.
like, whoa. And I had to pay that off, and it cost me, that was 17 years ago. I think it was like 15 grand. And I had to pay that off over the course of like maybe 3 or 4 years or something like that. It took me to pay that off. So that was good for accountability. But I know there's people that rehab is a big business. I don't think it's for everybody. I think it's a big, huge money-making business, and it's like, $20,000-$30,000 a month. And there's people that go in and out there 3-4 times and don't get it. And I think and that's why we say this rock bottom thing. If you're not ready, it doesn't matter what program or what famous mentor or person you have that's going to help you. If you're not ready, it's not going to work. And now you're out 100 grand. So
Yeah.
it's like, are you ready to change your life? Are you sick and tired of being sick and tired? Because if you're not, you're going to go out and drink again. So yeah, it takes work. I was talking to one of my clients this morning, and he's like, every time I was giving him because I do life coaching for addiction recovery. Every time I would say, here's what we're going to do. So in my practice, in my therapy, I have an intensive writing exercise, because in the writing, you get to slow your mind down and you get to see in front of you what your life is doing. Oh, this is good, this is bad, this is helping, this is harmful. And every time I'm like, all right, this is what we're going to write down. And he's like, yeah, but, or I don't know, this is what I'm thinking. And I had to stop him. I'm like, look, you're not, this is where you will have to work. Here's where we are right now. Your whole life is leading you up to this spot. I'm guiding you in the right direction, and he's not ready to do it. And so I had to push him a little more. And I've let clients go because they're paying me and they're not doing the work. And I don't want to take their money if they're not going to do the work.
Oh, good for you. That makes me crazy when people are, taking all kinds of money and their clients aren't getting any results.
Yeah. Yeah, it's awful. I mean, a lot of people do that. And that's what rehabs do. They go in, they put this cool little program together, and people come in, they feel like they're going to change their lives. This is the time. This is the place, because I'm going to spend 50 grand on this one. And then they get out and start snorting cocaine again. And I can sympathize. I can empathize with you. And, the cool thing about like having a coach like you or I is that we've been there and we understand. So, you can go to church, and if you're called to do that, go do that, or a temple or whatever mosque or whatever you want to go to. And those people, they're going to love you. They're going to hug you. They'll be there for you if you want to go out or need somebody to talk to, but they don't know what it's like to drink until you throw up blood and pass out in your clothes and pee your pants and wake up in the morning and look in the mirror and cry and say, I'm never doing this again, and then start drinking again. So
Yeah.
those people don't know what that's like. So when I'm sitting there with a client, he looks at me and says, I drove my car into a house last night. I could say, yeah, I've been there. And here's how I got out of there.
Sorry, my husband. He thought he was being funny. He didn't know I was. So fun. The joys of professional podcasting. Does that ever happen to you?
No, I definitely tune everybody out.
Oh my God. Okay. So, yes, well, rehabs definitely have a place. And I have seen over the last 26 years that I've been sober, I've seen people come in and out of rehab just because they're not ready. And it's amazing the level of pain tolerance that we have when we're getting loaded. And I just think it's so interesting. And tell me what your experience has been like since, you've been sober for a long time. Your pain threshold, I don't know about you, but for me, it's gone down significantly. Like I can't tolerate, like you were talking about, emotional sobriety. The opposite of that is, I don't know what it is. It's having, what is it? Like the opposite of that. It's being like living in pain and
Mental?
not having, what's that?
Mental and miserable.
Mental and miserable. Yeah. I like sober and sane better, but mental and miserable. Yeah. Emotional sobriety, just having good, healthy coping skills is really important. What do you do to maintain sort of that emotional sobriety?
Yeah, it's really not a big secret, and it's funny, like, the 12 steps are great. It's one of the most profound programs ever written on the planet.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah, and it gives people a direction that There was this guy, he used to say, welcome to kindergarten. That's what this is. This is kindergarten, right? Step one, step two, like just follow the
Right.
program. And if you get stuck somewhere, and it doesn't matter if you're 3 days in or 30 years in, if you get stuck somewhere, go back and figure out where you are. Well, do I need to revisit step 1, 2, 3? Like, so there's ways to do that. But there's also other things outside of the 12 steps that I do. And I think that that's important too. I think everybody needs a coach, a mentor, different types of direction, because I think you can outgrow a lot of the programs. And I outgrew the 12-step program, but I always end up going back to it because it's the fundamental program. And I always go
Yeah.
back to when I wake up in the morning and I connect with my higher power, which I say God. So God, thank you for letting me wake up today. Thank you for everything you've given me, and thank you for everything you've taken away. Thank you for showing me the next steps to take so I can be successful in life today. I mean, these are things that I say every day, all day long. I say the serenity prayer. It's our basic prayer, and there's so much power in it. And then I meditate too. And I actually sit still and meditate for 10 to 20 minutes every morning. And that's the way I go. And I journal and I write. And I have these big pads here. And I don't know if they'll come up with the lighting, but I write in these things for at least a half hour a day. And if I'm going through a crisis, which I am now, I'm writing for like an hour a day. And before I go to bed too. Because the average person has 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. That's like one thought per second. And if those were all healthy, productive thoughts, that would be awesome, but they're not. So I'm writing on a daily basis. And then I'm like putting my day together. I'm visualizing how my day's going to go. If I wake up, like I have a great life. So as soon as I wake up in the morning, I start focusing on the negative things that are going wrong. And then my day is going to go that way. So I need to catch it and redirect my thinking. And that comes from prayer, meditation, writing. And then when I do that and I say, oh, my day's going to go like this, I'm going to have this meeting, I have this podcast, I have this client, I'm going to exercise, I'm going to eat well, and then I'm going to go have that day. And that's how I stay sober today. And then I help as many people as I can along the way, because that's why we're here. If you get stuck, I used to get stuck all the time on, why am I here? I drove my car into a freaking house. I was in 20 drunken car accidents, and I'm still here, and I'm healthy and strong. And you hear about some mother and daughter walking across the street and gets wiped out by a car. Why am I here? So I'm here because I have to help somebody get to where they need to be. And when my time is done doing that, then it'll be time for me to leave here.
Wow, that's really profound. I mean, I love what you just did. You broke down the whole like day-to-day process. I do the same thing. Like I do the whole prayer, meditation, and journaling in the morning, and visualizing. I started doing this exercise, and it's like I visualize a goal and then write about it as if it's already happened.
Yes.
It's
Awesome.
been Yeah, it's been one of my most favorite exercises. When you're doing journaling, I was just talking to a friend of mine. She was going through something, and she's like, I don't think I'm going to be able to sleep tonight. I have so much anxiety. And I was like, well, write about it. Do like stream of consciousness writing, and just like whatever pops into your head, write about that. And she really found it challenging. Like she couldn't do it. What is your process of journaling? Are you doing stream of consciousness, or how do you do your writing?
Yeah, well, it depends on what you're going through, right? So when I have people do different types of things, like this one guy that I was just talking about, my client, he's struggling with his goals and procrastination. So I say, all right, well, tell me 5 goals. Okay, write down 5 things that are going to make this summer just a screaming success. Write those down and be specific, because it's like that plan. If you don't have a plan, you'll probably end up someplace else, right? So
Mhm.
let's write. Don't say, oh, I was thinking about doing this, and maybe I'll do some of this, and then maybe I'll hop into something like this, because you're never going to get there. So I want to know 5 specific goals. And then from there, I want 3 steps to help you accomplish each one of those goals. And if 5 is too many, because once you start breaking it down into exactly what you want to do to be successful, 5 is too many. So you might have to stick with 1 or 2. Pick the one. Like when you write in order 5, number 1 and 2 are probably your 2 big ones that you want to get done. So let's focus on those 2. So, all right, one, I want to, get out of debt. Okay, so how are we going to do that? How much money do you make? How is your spending? What are you spending money on? And then before, it doesn't matter if your spending is out of control. It doesn't matter if you make more money because you'll just spend more money. So we need to get the spending under control. So I'm very specific when I'm writing things down. It's like, what am I trying to do? If currently, I'm going through a breakup, separation. I'm really going through some heartache here. So what I'm doing is I'm writing down things I'm grateful about in the relationship, things I miss, things I love, and then I'm writing down reasons I'm glad that it's over. So that's very specific. So I could see like which one's dominating there, right? And ultimately, it ends up that I'm learning a lot by doing that because I'm learning where my faults are, which is part of the program too, right? I'm writing things down so I could see where my shortcomings are, where I fell short, where I could have been better. So for my next adventure in that world, I won't make the same mistakes, or at least at such a deep level.
Yeah. That's really helpful. I mean, getting really specific about your goals and then the action steps to attain your goals, that's really important. And processing on paper. I had a friend tell me one time that your elbow has like a BS filter in it, and when you write, the truth comes out.
I
And
never heard
I
that before. I love
Isn't
it.
that funny? Yeah, I have found that to be true because sometimes I don't even know what I'm thinking or feeling until I process it. There's been so many studies done on the value of journaling, and there is something about just getting it out of your head and onto paper that brings peace and clarity. And I love that you do it at night, right? Does that help you sleep a little bit better?
Absolutely, because if I'm focused on the sadness and the anger, the grief, the loss, then that's the way my night's gonna go. So again, it's all about like redirecting my thinking. Drinking, drugs, food, porn, that's not the problem. That's what I'm using to cope with my problem. So I need to get rid of the chemicals or the harmful behavior and replace it with healthy behavior. So in my case, it's the writing. So, and it's redirecting my thinking when I wake up and when I go to bed because my thinking is messed up. So
Yeah.
before I go to bed, if I'm thinking sadness and loss and grief and all this stuff, and then I go to close my eyes and I'm like laying there with the covers over my head going shaking because I don't know how to process that. And that's why people drink. And that's why people numb out. And so before I go to bed, I'm writing these things down and I'm being real strategic about what am I trying to accomplish with this writing? Oh, all right. So I was shutting down. I had some passive aggressive behavior going on. I'm not a mean, violent, abusive person, but what I do is I shut down and then I get silent. And I'm like, all right, so now I have to get into, and this is how I teach coaching and stuff like that. But where did that behavior come from? It almost always came from childhood, right? So I have to go back and dig that out. Once I start digging out, then this is how you become mature and grown up and adult and honest and look the world in the eye. And then you become successful in everything you do. But it takes time to learn this stuff.
Absolutely. Going back to the childhood stuff, are you saying that like in childhood you were taught to suppress your feelings, like nobody wanted to hear what you had to say, or where did that come from?
Where I think it came from, and this is interesting, and hopefully my parents don't watch this episode.
Right. I'm not
But
CNN. They'll probably never see it.
I know. Well, yeah, that's where it came from. Man. Some of the stuff I'm learning, like I just didn't want to engage with my family. I'm gonna keep it general, but some people I didn't want to engage with, so I shut down emotionally, and then I'm like not paying attention to them, and because I didn't want to talk about that event, that stuff, and so I shut down, and then I don't participate in the conversation anymore. So I get quiet and I go into silence, and the person I'm talking to, and I've carried that in my whole life. That person I'm talking with, and it's my partner, and then she thinks that I'm not engaging enough and I'm not communicative, but I'm that's the behavior I'm finding about myself that's harmful. So now I can correct it. I mean, and then this is where the work really begins, where you can go in and start correcting that behavior, where you're doing emotional reprogramming. So I'm going in instead of blocking out, I'm looking for situations where I'm not comfortable in that conversation and I'm trying to change my behavior. So instead of shutting down, I'm tuning in and trying to listen to what they're saying and then participating in the conversation. This is how you do it. You reprogram your mind. And that's the support I teach people in my coaching.
No, I love that. I call it brain, spiritual brainwashing.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, but
Yeah.
it requires work and effort, and it requires help from an outside source, because nobody's going to sit down and say, yeah, you know what, I think I've been shutting down. I'm going to do some emotional reprogramming here. And nobody does that. So if you have somebody that you're accountable to, they're going to give you that type of direction. And this is how you become emotionally sober. And this is how you become able to communicate and have relationships like an adult.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about, I mean, I don't want to try to make you cry or anything, but I was so impressed with your courage to make a decision, to make a major change in your life. I knew that there were some things that fundamental things, like you're both good people. Nobody's, walking away mad, but there were some fundamental, profound differences that you guys were not in alignment. And so it took a lot of courage for you to make decisions. And there's other people involved, but you seemed like you're not doing that. Like you're talking about all this writing and stuff that you're doing and trying to. I don't get the sense that you're doing that spiritual bypassing. You're not using your tools so that you don't. You just feel your feelings. You're actually feeling all your feelings. Can you just like walk me through that decision making process and how you've been coping with the emotions that have come up since then? Because as we were discussing before we were recording, that the end of a relationship is like a death, right? And this is big. This is really big what you're going through. So I'm just curious about the decision making process that led you here, and then how you've been handling it since.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it is, it's hard to talk about, but I'm going to. So, we were together for 8 years, and it's like a death. It's like a loss. I'm grieving, and really sad, because we love each other still, but it's like, it just it wasn't working, and we were unhappy and unfulfilled. And it was like that for a long time. And people stay in relationships for 20 or 30 years like that. And so it's really hard to walk away. It seems easier to just stay there and stay in it and stay in the house. It's really hard to do what I've just been doing the last month, which is moving and starting over and
Mm.
pulling away from, there was like a security there, but it was just an unhealthy relationship in terms of, it was kind of just sad. Like it was uncomfortable most of the time, but it was nobody's fault. I've accepted responsibility for my stuff. But I think I'm not name calling it. She's great. I love her still, and we still love each other. But what you said was important, and to relate it to sobriety and addiction recovery, it's like this. For the last few weeks, I've been going through hell, this bleeding heartache. And now some of the bleeding has stopped, but that first week, and we were talking about this before, I was crying like every 10 minutes. And I'm not talking about like, a tear when you're watching a sad movie. I'm talking about like crying, like uncontrollable crying. And I was grieving. But here's what happens, like these feelings are coming at me and I'm feeling them, and they go in my ear here. Let's just picture it like this. They're going in my right ear, and I'm processing them and I'm feeling them. And then there's some sadness, there's some anger, there's some fear, lots of fear, because I'm like starting over. I have a new house I'm moving into. It's a lot of work. And then I'm processing all of this, and it just comes out the other side, and I'm feeling it all the way through. What happens with addiction, with alcohol, drugs, food, sex, money, shopping, whatever it is, the feelings come in. I'm full of fear, sadness, anger, loss, grief, and it comes in here and I don't deal with it. So it swirls around in my head. And rather than deal with it and process it and let it come out the other side, I go drink, or I go shopping, or I watch porn, or I do drugs, or I eat too much. Like that's what's happening here. I've been processing these feelings, and I've just shortened the curve. Because I'll tell you, I went through heartache. The first time I went through it, I was about 20 years old. It was just this like really unhealthy drunken relationship. But 20 years old, but she was my first love. And I never learned how to process any of that shit. And it took me 2-3 years of just drunken anger, sadness, punching holes in drywall, and just being a mess to try to get through it. For this, it's been like 3 weeks now since the actual event of leaving. And I'm like, I get these waves of sadness, but I'm not grieving anymore. I get these waves of sadness when something reminds me, or a song comes on, or something I knew that she liked, or something like that. But the bleeding has stopped. You know, I'm not angry. I'm not being outwardly angry towards anybody. I'm taking care of my responsibilities. I'm in full on do the next right thing mode. And I'm like, sometimes the next right thing, I went and got some ice cream last week. So sometimes it's like, you just have to take care of yourself. And there's a difference between taking care of yourself and being selfish. Sometimes we all need to take care of ourselves. You know, it's like the airplane, the airbag that comes out in the airplane. You have to take care of yourself first before you can save everybody else. So I'm constantly taking care of myself. I exercise every day. I'm writing, I'm praying, I'm meditating, I'm talking to people. There's no tricks here. If you're going through anything, whether it's fresh sobriety, if you're scared to death, if you're going through a heartache, give me a call. I'll walk you through it. If you're a girl, give her a call, because I don't
Help
understand women
me.
growing up. And it's like, just feel it. Get through it. You're going to get to the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just process that so that you can resolve it. And what you were saying, about that was a great analogy, coming in one ear and out the other. And I got this image like when we don't allow it to process, like we stuff it, like, from the neck down, from the heart down, we just stuff it until we disassociate. And for me, that's the purpose of addiction and distraction, is that it's distracting you from the pain that you can't tolerate, right? And I think a lot of us didn't have healthy coping skills, right? So we developed unhealthy coping skills because there is no real denial of actual pain. And there's that lie that time heals all wounds. It doesn't. The pain waits. And so the next time you bump up against the same situation, I think that's why some people, when they talk about getting triggered, they have an inappropriate reaction to the situation. They're not really reacting to the situation. It's like they're releasing all the pent up anger that they didn't process from before. Right. So, yeah, it's so important to be able to have a way to process all these feelings and resolve it so you don't continue to carry all this poison with you.
It does. And something else that's important, and my sister said this to me, and she's my hero. She's like
Mm,
my real life sponsor, mentor person. But
nice.
you know, and she said this a while ago, but it just came up again because I've been going through this. And I was like, it was during that week when I was just crying every 10 minutes and I couldn't talk without crying. And I was like, I'm just really sad. And she said, it's okay to be sad.
Yeah.
It's okay to be whatever. It's how do you process that? That when that feeling again, and process it and get it out. Feel it all the way through. If you're angry, be angry. It's okay. Try not to punch holes in things and hurt people. But it's okay to be angry for a little while. Feel it. What's that anger supposed to teach you? One of my favorite speakers out there, and I'm not a Christian, but I love Joel Osteen. I think he's
I
just
love him. I
he's
love
an
him.
incredible speaker. He is just
Mhm.
very profound, very direct. He's very confident. And the one thing he said, he's like, if you're feeling pain, that pain is there for a reason. It's there to motivate you, to grow you, to show you something. Learn from your pain. Don't waste your pain. If you're
Yeah.
going through pain, you're supposed to be going through that for a reason. So try to figure out what that reason is. And if you can't do it by yourself, ask somebody. Talk to people. My intuition, my reaction to things when I get overwhelmed is to go sit by myself somewhere and try to figure it out. And that's what gets me sick. That's what gets me
Yeah.
sick and full of alcohol and drugs and saying stupid shit and just doing the wrong things. Where if I talk with somebody, I take a lot of the power out. Or if I pray or if I meditate, I'm taking the power out. I'm feeling it, but I'm taking that emotional power out of it so it doesn't rule my life so much.
Right. Yeah. It's that pain that that does that unchecked emotion totally runs your life.
Yes.
Yeah, we make decisions that we wouldn't normally make. They say that emotion colors our perspective. Can't see things clearly, and I think that's why it's so important to have an outside perspective, somebody who's not emotional, who can see things clearly, to help really just bring the answers that we already have inside us out. Right? We all know, right?
Important. And that's the role of a coach. It's not to tell you the answers, it's to
Right.
bring it out so you can learn it by yourself, so you can become independent,
Yeah.
so you can learn how to live by yourself and be independent. I wasn't independent, and I never learned how to do that. I missed that whole section of life where they taught how to be independent and be comfortable and process emotions. The kindergarten. Welcome to kindergarten.
Welcome
Here,
to, yeah, spiritual kindergarten.
yeah, that's what this is.
Yeah, and it's such a funny paradox, right? It's like we need each other, right? So we don't do this alone, and at the same time it does foster independence,
Well,
right? At the same time.
independent doesn't mean that you don't have friends or accountability partners or coaches or mentors in your life. It means that you're living on your own, and you can turn to these people, but you're not codependent. Codependency is a huge addiction. It's probably the biggest addiction on the planet, next to Starbucks. It might be codependency.
Right?
Yeah. So, I mean, people are dependent on each other. And that's why people stay in these relationships for 20 or 30 years without learning
Yeah.
how to work through them. And again, doing what I've done the last month is really hard. It was really painful. And the moving out of your own house with a broken heart is awful. And, trying to find a new place to live and go shopping and do all this stuff and try to have clients and podcasts and
Oh
other
my
interviews
God.
and do this work. I'm working on a new book and everything too. So it's like trying to hold your whole life together and go through all this is really hard. So it seems easier to stay together, but it's really way harder. It's like this long, painful existence over the course of 2 or 3 decades. So if you can't find ways to get through it, sometimes it's better to break, but it's hard work.
Yeah. Very hard. Definitely the courageous thing to do, because you're risking that you could have a better life, right? For yourself, and you're letting somebody else go to see if they can have a better life as well, right? It's not just about you. It's everybody that's involved, which
Yeah.
is the
And I,
brave
and
thing
I
to
said,
do.
and I told you before too, I was like, if God brings us back together sometime on some level, some way, somehow, we're both open for that. But the way we were going, and we couldn't figure out how to grow the right way together. So
Yeah.
this is what needs to happen. And I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I mean, I we're not together. So, but I have to live my life and take care of myself.
Mhm.
It took me years to prepare myself to be somebody who would be wanted, needed, and loved. And I found somebody to do that with, and it didn't work out. So it's going to take time to heal. That's the other thing. Going through something like this is really hard. So that a lot of people will go out and drink or start eating cake or do whatever to not feel it all. Like I have to get prepared for my next one, for whatever comes next. I have to make myself awesome again so I can attract awesome into my life.
Yeah, I would only argue that you don't need to get awesome again to just stay awesome. You're already like you're not broken, right? And I think that was like for me, like that was one of the biggest misconceptions of myself is I thought I was broken and I needed to be fixed. And yeah, we're not broken. We do have pain and we need some healing, but um listen, everybody has to go through that. So I just really appreciate your courage and it's the courage of presence. You're present for your emotions, and that's really the only time you can ever make a healthy choice is in the present moment, right? And it does require strength and persistence, and definitely, hope that for a better, more peaceful, productive life for everybody. So yeah, I just want to commend you for
I think it's good for people that are watching that are in early sobriety. Another reason a lot of people fail is because when life does kick you in the nuts and you're like, and it's really painful, long-term sobriety is great. And the reason it's great, not because we're better than you, it's because we learn things at a deeper level and we learn that we can get through things. So it's like, all right, I got through some financial problems early on. So I got
Mm.
through that. And there's going to be more financial problems, but I know I got through it before, so I'll get through it this time. There's going to be some heartache. Well, I got through that in sobriety. I didn't have to drink or numb out at all. And now I can get through it again if it comes up again. And I had to deal with some health problems. So I can deal with that. And then at some point, if that comes up again, which it will at some point, then I know I can get through it without having to numb out. So the
Yeah.
longer you're sober, the more you realize you don't need to numb out. You can make it through. But in the beginning, you're like scared because I don't know how to get through this.
Right.
So, but we're telling you how. You pray, you meditate, talk to people, and get out of yourself. Go help somebody. That's it.
That's it. Yeah. Simple, not easy, right?
Right.
As they say. Yeah. And that's why it's so nice to have a supportive community around you of like-minded people who are doing the same thing, because we can recognize when someone's hurting, and it is helpful to be able to speak the solution as well, right? Being of service to somebody else is absolutely a self-esteem building exercise. So I just appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing right when you're right in the middle of I'm going to call this the middle of a heartache. You're in the middle of the grieving process, which is a great time to talk about it, right? Because those that are also going through those similar experiences will gain hope, right? Hearing other people's experiences, that's what hope is. Um, and let me just ask you as we wrap up here. So, your book is called Funky Wisdom. I love that. A Practical Guide to Life. And it's also the name of your podcast, the Funky Brain Podcast. If people want to reach out to you for addiction or life recovery coaching, where's the best place for them to find you?
You can find it on my website, which is dennisberry.com, or you can reach out to contact@dennisberry.com, and my assistant will do something with that. Probably get in touch with me.
Jeez. You have to say it firmly. She's gonna get a hold of me.
Right away. Actually, she's awesome. She's way smarter than me, so she takes care of it. She's like, well, what about, did you answer that email? She has access to my email, my voicemail. She sees everything that I do. And she's like, why didn't you
That's
respond to that
awesome.
email? And I was like, oh, can you do that, please?
Yeah, she'll keep you on her toes. That's awesome. Well, yeah, I'll definitely leave links to everything in the show notes. And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming on. Did you have something else to say? You were.
I want to say, if anybody's struggling, please reach out. I'm offering right now, because of all this COVID stuff, I'm doing 2 free full coaching sessions. Just
Wow.
45-minute coaching sessions, which normally $95 an hour. So I just
Okay.
will have a consultation and 2 free sessions just to
Oh,
see
how
if there's a
nice.
connection between us. And if there's not, then cool. And if there is, then we could talk about next steps and go from there.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for doing that. I'm sure all my male listeners would appreciate a free session or two to get things back on track.
Yeah, don't wait till tomorrow when you're sick and tired and hungover, and that tomorrow's never going to come. You can call right now or email right now, and we'll just talk for a little bit and see if you don't feel better.
That sounds amazing. Well, listen, thank you. Thanks again. And it was such a pleasure to have you on. And I'm sure we'll have another conversation in the near future. So thank you so much.
Yay! Thank
Yay.
you. Hopefully, I didn't talk too much. I tend to talk.